It's cold in Minnesota, really cold in Minnesota, unseasonably cold in Minnesota. Like, it's really cold in Minnesota. And we need to make a decision right here if we're going to stay in our partially finished 120-year-old farmhouse, or if we're gonna get in our truck, hook up our RV, and head south. Before I talk about that, I wanna tell you about our vision for this place. My great-grandfather bought this land from the railroad company over 120 years ago. When my grandfather was about the age of my son Lawrence, they moved here from Illinois permanently. Over the years, my family has raised cattle, chicken, pigs, and we've grown watermelon and cucumbers and grains and trees, all for sale, all to try to make a living. There's only one problem. It's the soil. Vast swaths of Minnesota is covered in deep, dark, rich, nutrient-dense, alluvial soil. But that isn't what's under my feet. Under my feet sits about 80 feet of sand. Just sand. I don't know how much you know about soil, but sand and gravelly soils, they just don't hold water very well. You have to go 25 feet down to get water here, which means that in order to farm here, you have to be able to pump massive quantities of water. Before the Rural Electrification Act of 1936, my family lived on this very property without any electricity. And honestly, it's really hard to try to imagine farming here without electricity. But my family did, albeit with minimal success. After my grandfather bought the farm from his father, he spent decades trying to figure out what would grow here. And in the 1950s, he started one of the first Christmas tree farms in the United States. The Christmas trees actually thrived in our sandy soil, and so did his business. But by the 1970s, Christmas trees, like so many other things, became a commodity. There was no more money in it, and he sold out of the business while he still could. When I was a little boy, my father restarted the business. But thanks to the federal government and some huge tax loopholes they had created, which gave really wealthy people a huge tax break if they planted Christmas trees, it kind of put the final nail in the Christmas tree business coffin for my family. And for the last 20 years, nothing has been planted here. Nothing has been sold from here. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. Daddy.
Is it Daddy?
Little cutie. Sarah actually just walked up, so I think we're gonna walk down and get the mail. Nobody's gotten the mail today.
Don't go too fast down the hill, please.
What?
I said don't go too fast down the hill, please. Ethan and I have lived on this property, and we've moved away to live elsewhere multiple times in our life together.
But it was the last time we left while living in the city that we started to feel really kind of uneasy about the precariousness of being so attached to the infrastructure around us.
Ethan grew up in the country, and I grew up in the city. But we both started to feel this need to be far more self-sufficient.
When I was a kid living in the country, I always knew that we'd be all right. If my dad lost his job, it would have been okay. If the grocery stores didn't have any food on the shelves, it would have been hard, but we would have figured it out. And I desperately wanted to give that to our children.
In fact, you could say we felt called to give that to our children.
We were really called to build sanctuary.
So we moved back to the family property once again, and this time we decided that we should turn the land into a farm again.
So I set out, much like my grandfather, to figure what we could grow here, what we could raise here, and how we could make this property profitable. The good news is that we now have the technology to water this entire property with a precision and efficiency that my great-grandfather would just be scratching his head at in wonderment.
The bad news is that we have a lot less land than what Ethan did when he was a kid.
It's very true. Pixel!
Pix!
We were gonna go get the mail.
We were, but the dog's down there and I don't want her to...
But the dog's off the leash and we don't want her to get run over. So we're gonna turn around and go back. Pippi's coming.
Good girl.
Good girl. When Sarah and I first got married, we had about 240 acres that the family still owned.
It wasn't a lot of land, but it was enough to have a fully functioning farm.
Today, we've managed to only hold on to 50 acres.
Now that might seem like a lot of land for a homestead.
But that is not a lot of land for a farm.
It would mean that we would have to grow something that would have an extremely high return per acre.
Of course, we would also need to find something that would grow in this sandy soil.
And it would have to survive a Minnesota winter.
Which is actually kind of a big deal. That sounds simple enough, right? It was actually easier than we thought. After a bunch of research, we found out that the University of Minnesota had actually created a hybrid wine grape where they basically crossed an old world grape, so it had the chemical composition of a European wine grape, but they crossed it with a common American, a wild grape, which tastes horribly, but can handle the Minnesota winter.
Not only that, but the state of Minnesota has created a farm winery license that allows a farm to produce wine, cider, and mead and sell it directly from their farm.
Combine that with small run livestock and other crops to increase the quality and nutrients of the soil, and we feel like we've found something that'll actually work.
Both physically and financially.
So we figured out a way to make our sanctuary a reality.
But before we could do that, we're gonna have to dig ourselves out of the debt that we've piled up over the last decade trying to keep up with the Joneses.
In order to do that, we actually need to free up enough cash every month to pay extra on all of the debts we have.
The fastest way to do that is to fix up our old farmhouse with cash and rent out the house that we have a mortgage on.
Which would give us a really good chunk of money every month that we could throw at all of our debts. Anyway, Sarah needs to get back inside because it's cold.
Yeah, go wrangle up the dog.
Yeah, and we didn't get the mail anyway.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Later.
love you.
Love you.
All right. So we started working on the farmhouse. We worked on it for over a year with really little results. You see, we thought we could work on the farmhouse while we lived in our other house and that we'd get it done. But I'm here to tell you, sometimes you just need to burn the boats on the beach. And in the spring of 2019, we did precisely that. We bought an RV and moved out of the house. We spent all summer working on the house while we were living in the RV. We worked and we sacrificed. We sacrificed our YouTube channel by not releasing much content. We sacrificed our friendships by not getting together with people and seeing people. We sacrificed a lot of sleep. On more than one occasion, we ran completely out of money. That's the problem, by the way, when you're building a house with cash. You actually have to have the cash. And did I mention we're in debt? It's even harder to come up with cash when you're using all your cash to pay off your bills. Everything took longer than we budgeted. If I thought something would take a week, it took 3. I also had no time. I work full time and I'm the sole income earner for my family. At some point over the summer, the owner of the company that I work with let me know that they wouldn't need my services anymore past October. Yeah, that's right, I was losing my job. On top of all of the work for the house and my normal work for my job, I also needed to start looking for a new job. Sometimes I think I can be kind of lazy. After I just get done working a 12-hour day, it can be really difficult for me to want to go work on the house until late at night. Sometimes I would get started at 10 o'clock at night, only to work for an hour or two to realize I didn't have the right tool. Everything was closed. and I'd have to quit for the day. I just hadn't thought ahead. Sometimes I would get to work by 5 p.m. but quit by 7 p.m. because I was just done. I just couldn't do anything more. Sometimes you can have all of the mental energy in the world, but your body just won't do anything more. And sometimes it's the other way around. Your body is willing, but your mind is done. That's the thing. Sometimes in life you give it everything you got, and it's just not good enough. And that's where we've ended up this fall. We worked hard. We sold things for cash. We sacrificed a bunch of things we wanted to do over the summer to work. We tried hard, but we just fell short. We have a partially insulated house with no electricity and no running water. So what are we gonna do? Have you ever been to the point in your life where you have a very clear fork in the road ahead of you? You head in one direction and you live to fight another day, but the catch is you will have to fight another day because you never fought the fight. You head down the other path and you are guaranteed to fight. And you're also not guaranteed to win. That's where we've been at. And that's the decision I'm here to share with you. If you've been watching this channel long enough, you probably know enough about me to know that there's only one of those paths that I would choose. I could be called a lot of things, but a guy who runs away from risk and conflict and adversity isn't one of them. I'd rather take my licks and have it out than run away. So we decided to stay and fight. We took all of our energy, time, and money and focused on the bare minimum things we would need to get into the house. We needed heat, a place for everyone to sleep, a place for me to work, a basic camp kitchen, and some kind of electrical supply so that we could power my office. It took us a couple weeks of working as hard as we could. During those 2 weeks, I also had 2 job interviews, one in New York City and one in Chicago. So I was gone part of those weeks. But we did it. We did it. We pushed as hard as we could, and we did it. We won. Yeah, we won. In 2 weeks, we moved mountains and we moved into our farmhouse. The last time you saw our farmhouse, it looked like this. Now, it looks like this. Oh, and about my job, they ended up extending my contract. You've made it this far, so if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And if you are a subscriber, be sure to click on the notifications. I would also like to take a moment to thank all of the people who have helped us. Christina R., you sent us concrete screws and drywall screws at the moment we needed them. And one other person did, but they didn't send us a name. So thank you as well. A lot of people have asked how they can support our channel. If you would like to support our channel, the best way is through our Amazon wishlist. Everything we have on there either goes towards building this house or making YouTube videos for you. Until next time, see you later.